Barenpark, the Bad News Bears. This is an expansion for the Barenpark game. So in this review, I will take it for granted you know the game, because in any case you can't play it without the game. So maybe you played the game before, maybe you watched my excellent video for it, maybe you watched some of the okay video reviews out there. That's fine. There's several ways in which you may be equipped to appreciate what happens in this video and what you find in this box. Barenpark, the Bad News Bears has 2 new ways of playing the game. It also had some other things, say for example, extra tiles that you can use to expand your park, extra tiles that you can put on the stack of the different things that you can add to your park. Say it has like an 8 value tile for each of those basic 4 stacks of tiles that you have. But the main 2 things that you have here is that you can build the grizzly areas, scary, and or you can build monorails. The grizzly element of the expansion, actually before I get there I want to tell you the basic idea here is that the expansion, both extra modes of play, give value to the basic green tiles. Those tiles that in the original game do not score, they do not have any point value on them, but you still need them to fill up areas. Now actually there's more stuff that you can do with them, because it is true in the basic game, although it's fine, later in the game you're kind of like annoyed, like these tiles, there's not much I can do with them. Now you can do stuff with them. For example, if you're playing with the Grizzly expansion, all of these game pieces will be available there, will be spread out. So yes, it'll take a little bit of room on the table or the floor, wherever you're playing. So you want these tiles to be fully visible to all players. Then, during a turn, you can discard a green tile and 1 other environment tile, and basically you trade them for one of these tiles. As you can see, are larger than usual tiles, so that makes them a little more challenging to place, but they also have a lot of value. That also tells you when you're taking from those stacks, 7, 6, 5, and so on and so forth, maybe you get stuck with some of the lower values, and again, this expansion gives value to those too, because you can discard a single green tile with no value whatsoever, and value 1 or 2 tile from somewhere else, and you got this one, 10 points. Of course, you have the challenge of fitting this super weird shape, but it's still very cool. So, in the original game, sometimes it can really be a race to grab the tiles on top of a stack to get a highest value, and maybe they're not so good and useful for you. You don't have that kind of pressure because you can get a tile later on and you're not even interested in that shape or that value. You're just getting ready to trade it for one of these ones. And of course, everybody's favorite one is this one, because you can put it right around a pit where later you will place a monument. It's not necessarily the best one, but it's the cutest one. And I've seen people really going for this one for the cuteness value, I guess. The second expansion, even more daring. Now, when you place a green tile, you can immediately place one of these towers on one of the squares in the green tile. Then later you place another green tile exactly 2 small squares away from it, and then you can place a monorail tile on it. And again, you will want to stack them in order from highest value to lowest, but then the cool thing is that you place a monorail just like so. How cool is that? You can then continue building that, but you cannot have them in a single line because that's too easy and boring. Who wants to go on a monorail train like that? And so they have to be at 90 degrees from one another. So maybe after a while, your monorail will look like this, and then like this. And then maybe later like this, and so on and so forth, just to give you a sense of the shape that it may take. because they need to be exactly a 2 squares of difference from one another. Square, empty square, another square. They have to take a 90-degree turn every time. So there's a lot to consider here because, again, they only go on green tiles. Of course, if you take a long green tile, a big green tile, then you have 3 small squares in which you can put them, but still you have a lot to think about because at the same time as you're trying to get the extra points from the monorail, you're also trying to do everything else, fill up a tile, get a bear statue before everybody else does it, and so on and so forth. But this is the general idea. These are the 2 new modes of play that you can add with the Bad News Bears. Get the Grizzlies in your park and or at the monorail. If you saw my video for Barenpark, you have seen me raving about how good the game is. In fact, it was so good that once I heard about the expansion, I wasn't even sure that I needed it. The game as it was felt so airtight. Expansion usually work where I feel like when an expansion, something is missing from the original design. I didn't feel anything like that with the original Barenpark because it is so good, so good. So I was wondering, what does this add that we needed? It turns out, one of those things, I didn't think I needed it until I played it, and then I wonder how I could ever play without it before. Not true. I'm still going to play the game without the expansion because it's so good. But it is true that there is an element that becomes even more interesting and meaningful with the expansion, which is the basic green tiles that allow you to cover areas, to grab more tiles, but do not score. It is also true that sometimes later in the game you realize you want a certain shape that really works, and all of the good tiles of that shape have been taken, meaning now you're left with tiles that have the right shape but really low value because they were at the bottom of a stack. And sometimes you feel like that could be, I should have planned ahead. It's fine, but isn't better actually if you have even more gameplay options, and so you have more complexity because there are more rules, more things that you can do, but precisely because of that, then also more ways that you can use to implement your strategy. Then you can basically use green tiles and low scoring tiles that you picked up earlier, and they're pretty much useless or really low value in the game, and turn them into valuable grizzly areas. To me that is very interesting because basically as the game progresses and some of your tiles lose value and really potential, then you can turn them into something more valuable. So throughout the game, thanks to the Grizzlies expansion, then you have interesting tiles that you're working with. You don't feel, as sometimes it happens in the original Barenpark, that the game quote-unquote slows down towards the end a little bit, which again, I never felt it was a problem. I don't mind now actually that being even better with low value tiles becoming resources you can exchange for better tiles later on. It's still a challenge because those grizzly tiles are great because they cover large areas, but they can be really weird, and so you still have to work hard to make them work. As for the other expansion, the monorail, that is also interesting. Again, this based on the idea that putting down a green tile is not always bad. It's not just a fill-in, but can help you build that structure. Now, my only concern is that I wouldn't play this with some friends of mine that I know can be prone to analysis paralysis, because then I'm really worried that they would be starting to try to do too many things at the same time. And if you really want to maximize your chances of getting a bear statue, filling up your areas, and building the weird-looking monorails, that can be a problem. I think you're going to enjoy the monorail expansion if you take it a little bit in a zen fashion. That is, I'm trying to do it, I'm not going to obsess about it. If it happens, it's a great bonus. But then, of course, you still have to take it pretty seriously, because if somebody else is zen about it, but also more efficient than you, then there are a lot of points that can be generated by the monorail. But again, those little humble green tiles, so easy to overlook in the basic game, now they have more value. And frankly, they even the monorail expansion even enhances the production value, because you have some really interesting patterns that will emerge. Simply put, the board that you build during the game will look great, will look even better. I always like to see puzzle games just to look at the puzzle as it appears, the physical visual appearance of a puzzle at the end of a game session. Now with the monorails, it is even more visually interesting, and that is an element that we can enjoy. So Barenpark, the Bad News Bears, that subtitle of the expansion, to me is good news bears, because you got 2 new ways of playing the game. You have extra tiles, extra things that you can add to the base game. I didn't think I needed it. I probably quote-unquote don't need it, because the base game is so strong, but I'm happy to have it because I love Barenpark, and now I have even more ways that I can love it thanks to different ways of playing the game contained in this expansion.